Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm gonna talk about the latest episode of Ray Donovan. So a lot of stuff went down in this episode, and let's kind of start, breaking it down piece by piece. One thing is we kind of saw in this episode, we dived a little bit deeper into the whole Ray and Natalie situation. I mean, for one, like both past and present, because in the present day, it's like, oh, she thought she killed her husband Rob. Turned out she didn't. Completely caught me by surprise. I guess like a lot of the signs should have been apparent. Like when I saw the bloody handprint, I was like, oh yeah, he died in the bathroom or something like that. It didn't correlate until like, and then what caught me off guard too was when he stabbed Ray. I was like, oh shit. And then you have Ray being pissed about, like, literally saying shit himself and then kicking Rob down the steps and knocking him out. I love that. It just shows you just how, like, destructive their relationship is and stuff like that. Like, Ray ended up taking him to a vet to get the bullet removed from his arm and everything. Which, side note, the doctor, I could be wrong, but isn't that, okay, Angie from the George Lopez show. I think the actress's name is Marie Constance, isn't it? I might be wrong about that, but the actor who played her dad, isn't that the same dude? It looks like it might be him. I could be completely wrong, but nevertheless, got the bullet removed from him and everything, and Ray's kind of like, you stay away from her, she'll stay away from you, bingo, bango, everybody's happy, so. Which is kind of interesting that later on in the episode, she would give the doll back. You literally went there to get the doll, and then you were like, no, I'm gonna leave it with him, because it was like, yeah, she originally got it as a gift for him, Rob, in the first place, but it's like you went through all of that to get the dog and now you're giving it back. You went over there specifically to get the dog, which led to a fight and him getting abusive and everything, and you shooting him. So it's almost like, why give the dog back? I feel like you'd be even more motivated to keep the dog, but I guess in some way, like their destructive relationship, there was some happy point. So I guess for her, it's like, I want to at least leave him with something because he is cooperating and it's saying like the divorce can go through and everything. And also along the same lines, since I'm talking about that, going back to like the whole, like, because I brought that up previously, I was curious to see, like, the fact is that the way they talked last episode made me think, like, no, you've actually come across each other subsequently since your strange encounter, like almost like she like running out in the road and you and Abby almost crashing. I was like, there's gotta be more to it than that. Like the way they were talking, like there was familiarity there, like they'd already talked before, and we see that a little bit because he goes walking the dog and they end up talking. She ended up saying something kind of profound that was kind of interesting to me about how like she was in a crash and she felt like she was dead and still feels like that, and no one like would tell her that she's dead, almost like she's the Walking Dead or something like that. And then eventually later on, her like Ray's about to walk away. He's like, "Yeah, I gotta go." And then she's like, "Oh, one more drink, I mean, that's all we're doing. Walking down." So it's like the moment it happens, like you end up having sex afterwards. And the moment they cut back to that past moment is like, "Yep, they're having sex." I knew it. I was so hoping he wouldn't for multiple reasons. Abby is literally dying, dude. You see her in this episode, her hair's thinned out, and she's telling Ray, come on, let's play the game, with Connor and Bridget, because it's like, that way we don't have, focus on the game so we have to worry about the real life shit. And he's getting drunk and just kind of, doing his thing, kind of avoiding things that kind of, issues. And it's like, dude, it's like I said, the whole situation, I was hoping it wasn't going to be the case, but of course it would be the case that he ended up having sex with Natalie. Why? Because it's a Donovan way. Because it's like the Donovan's way of handling things is kind of fucking up on multiple levels. I mean, Terry kind of gets to that point too. I'll dive into Terry soon enough, but it's just like, it sucks, dude, because on top of all that, it's not only are you cheating on your wife for multiple reasons. One, it's like, yo, after like, especially these past two episodes, it's been like, yo, we're on top of things, can't nothing stop us, we're on top of the world, ha ha ha. And then it's like the moment this happens, he like falls back and has sex with her at least once. Granted, it might even be more, guys. We still haven't done everything there is associated with the past, so I'm interested to see if that's the case. But maybe that makes him why he feels even more guilty when it comes to the whole situation with Abby dying, because he wasn't even at the end, he wasn't faithful to her. So it's like, it pisses you off, dude. It's like, damn it, Ray, you idiot. What are you doing? And she put so much trust in you, and you promised her you weren't going to be the same person again. You literally promised her last episode. And what do? When the going gets tough, you screw someone else, which is, like I said, kind of been his thing. And that, I mean, I'm legitimately getting a little frustrated because I didn't want him to do. Nah, you're on top of everything. I was like, walk away, Ray. And she's like, one more drink. I was like, come on, dude, walk away. Oh, you. it just sucks. Just all of that compounded together. And it's like, yes, you could argue it's like a combination of their family situation, of just like the Donovan family in general, not even just race specific family. Like, with him, Abby, Bridget, and Connor, more specifically just the Donovans in general, just their family dynamic combined with his own issues and along with everything that's happening now to Abby, it's a little too much to handle. So he needed a little escapism. Rather than playing a game, he had sex with Natalie. That was his way of kind of forgetting about his issues, at least for some time being. So, and it makes you wonder on some level, does Connor or Bridget know about that? Once again, it comes down to whether or not they had done it multiple times. I'm kind of getting the feeling like it might have just been that one time thing, but I mean, we'll kind of have to wait and see. Because Natalie didn't know that Ray, I guess, was married or whatever. Because, or at the very least, didn't know about Abby's situation. Because it's not till like present day when she's sleeping in the bed with that like Celtic shirt on. And he's like, what the hell? He's like, what the fuck are you doing? Get out that damn shirt. And he's just like, she's about to take it off. He's like, just forget about it. And he explained it to her, and she ends up apologizing later. She's like, I'm so sorry that about your wife dying. And it's like, so begging the question that she didn't know. Because at the time, she knew Ray was sad. Didn't know what the reasons why he was sad, but still, that just sucks. And I think that's even more so reason why he's upset, because he looked at it and it's like the woman he had sex with while his wife was sick and dying is right there wearing something of hers in their bed. It's like, it's stacked upon each other, just like how, like, it's multiple stacks of how fucked up that is on so many different levels, so. And kind of like I brought up earlier and kind of getting into it is Terry. Him and Maury are kind of having a fight. Maury goes and stays with, her brother Todd, because she found out about the whole prostitute thing, which I thought last episode was the whole conversation. I thought she already knew about the prostitute thing, but I guess Todd eventually brought up the prostitute thing like sometime during the brawl and everything. It's like, I thought she knew, because it's like, oh, I told her, because, he was talking about like, oh, he told her the truth, and it took her 9 hours to forgive him. What's most likely the case is he probably ended up finding out, she ended up finding out about him having sex with the prostitute. Abby knew he'd had, but like, at the time, like Terry was like, no, I didn't sleep with her. It's just, blah, blah, blah. It's like, Abby was like, yeah, she was pretty. Ain't no way Terry didn't sleep with her. So I think that's what really pissed Maury off, because it's not even just that too. It's like, if he had apologized for it and admitted it, she would have been fine with it. Yes, it would have been a hard pill to swallow, but what made it worse is that Ray knew and Abby knew, and neither one of them told her anything. So, I mean, for one, it's not their business to tell you. Like, that was all on Terry, and he's the one that didn't want to, and him, and kind of going along with what I brought up about Ray, the whole family dynamic about the Donovans, like, but specifically mentioning Mickey, how Mickey cheated on their mom, like, all the time, which he's not saying, like, oh, that justifies what I did, but it's like, it's to understand, like, our family's kind of screwed up. We're screwed up in our own way. And for Maury, it's like, the fact is that you hid all this stuff from me makes me feel like an outsider. I'm not part of your family. So I'm sure Todd is getting what he wanted, so I don't know. It's a shame, because it's like, how long you guys been married? Like a day, and just things already kind of going to shit. So it kind of sucks. We got to see what Connor's whole situation is. That he's into college, obviously, and it seems like what he's going out for is wrestling. Wrestling match didn't go that well, because it basically ended with Connor like headbutting the dude, and it's like, yo, you want to go? So Terry, fortunately, was there, which Connor's also talking about joining the Marines, but he's like, don't tell Ray. And the whole, like, him wanting to, drop out of college to join the Marines. Because for him, he's like, the fact of the matter is, like, going to school makes you weak. And he's like, basically, you spend your entire life being weak. And he's like, he's like, Dad had it right of being strong, because money makes you weak. Living where they lived made him weak. Going to college makes him weak. He doesn't want to be weak. He wants to be strong, kind of like his dad. So, because even then, that's an element of the story we still haven't tackled either. It's like, what really went down to kind of make it so that even Connor and Bridget aren't around anymore. Yes, it seems like college is a thing, but it seems like there's more to it, especially when it comes to Bridget's story. Like, there seems like there's multiple levels, because of the whole, like, fight that broke out anyway that she called the cops on Ray about in the first place. Plus, like, there's that thing about, like, yeah, I ran into that boy. You know which one I'm talking about. So there's still that element we don't know about. But was it just kind of getting away because of what happened with their mom or something? So, and now that I'm bringing that up, that brings up the question too. Once again, what the hell was Ray doing when Abby eventually died? You know, Bridget was crying outside of their room and everything. What was Ray doing specifically? Because he came back home with a suitcase and everything. So I kind of get the feeling like it might be something Natalie related. So, which is kind of interesting because you would think on some level maybe he'd harbor some like anger towards Natalie, blaming her in some shape or form. But I guess at the end of the day, like Ray's always a very, like, he has anger issues, which I love the whole conversation about Lena. She's helping up. She's like, oh yeah, that programming, you got like a meeting in like an hour. It's like, oh yeah, I've been to that anger management program like twice. It's like, and it's like, oh yeah, did it work for you? She's like, yeah, I'm cured. And they're just kind of laughing about it. Because that is a thing too. It's kind of interesting. Like, that's always been a subtle, I mean, not necessarily subtle, but it's not something you always tackle through the series. The fact is, Lena does have anger issues. Wasn't it back in season 1 or season 2? She ended up finding out that the woman she was sleeping with was married, and it pissed her off, and she punched her in the face. And I think it was like at the end of one of the seasons, she ended up getting arrested for it or something like that. So I think that's at least one of those moments. So that's always an element. Like, it's a thing. Like, it's not like it comes up that often, but I feel like it's there enough to extent you can like, yeah, Lena's got some anger issues. So there's also the whole situation with Mickey and Frank in this episode, where you have Frank coming up. Basically, he said like Avi, for whatever reason, stopped working with Ray after the whole season 4 thing happened. Now, whether there's bad blood or whether he just needed some time away, but basically him and Frank were working together. He did some stuff for Frank. It was like, oh yeah, Frank was like, oh, it all went well. But then like he ended up finding out that Avi has been selling some of the stuff that Sokolov had, and basically he's using Frank to cover his ass to do it. Which Frank is now asking Mickey to help deal with it because he can't ask Ray to do it because Ray's too loyal. And at the same time, like, you know, Ray's got so much on his plate. So it's my problem, which makes it your problem, which it's Ray's problem, what makes it even more your problem because you're going to want to cover it up for Ray because you know of everything that Ray's going through. So it's kind of putting Mickey in a very interesting position. It's like, why is Avi doing that? I mean, it doesn't seem like they're necessarily on bad terms because even Lena brought it up. Was that last episode? Might have been like it was like the premiere. She was like, yo, can you, oh man, I can't wait for Avi to get back. When is Avi getting back? You know, I miss Avi, so. And it seemed like Ray was too upset about hearing Avi's name, so it seems like they're good, possibly, so. I'm curious to see what was the real reason why he left and everything. And what that's all about. Is that, you know, what was he doing? Because it almost doesn't seem like Avi, but I mean, to be fair, I guess it's like, you know, he has to find another way of living since he ain't working with Ray anymore. But I mean, we'll just gonna have to wait and see. And since I was talking about Mick, it seems like his screenplay got rejected this episode. He's kind of dealing with that in his own way. Him and Bunchy too, because Bunchy doesn't get to go on the road with Teresa with the whole luchador thing. She's gonna be going for a couple weeks. And it kind of had Mickey being like the whole situation. Like, I guess, you know, our dreams aren't always meant to come true. But you have Bunchy trying to do this deal with the lady that Ray has his dealings with and stuff like that. Basically, it's like some kind of building he's buying. Like, you put in some money, like a crap ton of money, like 1.2 million or some crap like that. Put some money into it, and eventually, over the course of like 5 years or something, it was like, oh man, you're racking all that money, bam, 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 like something like that. It's like you don't have to even do anything. You just have to hire a few people, and you just sit back and you count your money. So you know it's not going to be that simple. Bunchy tends to kind of get, I feel like, I mean, once again, like literally the third time I'm saying it, Donovan's are fuck ups. So it's like, there's going to be a situation where it's like, Bunchy's going to get in some trouble. Like, whether it's financial or, you know, it starts off financial and then it turns into an ugly, like, physical situation. Never the case. Like, you know, he's trying to, you know, build something. He's trying to do something for himself because he's kind of gotten to rely on other people. With the whole luchador situation, it meant relying on Teresa. Now this might be something he can do for himself, him and their baby. You know, kind of like, you know, I don't know. I think for Bunchy, he never always felt like he wore the pants in any of his situation, whether it came to his family or whether it comes to his relationships. He never ever felt like he was probably like ever like on his own or in charge of anything. He just kind of had to follow the flow a little bit, kind of. So I'm interested to see what that all goes. And a quick note, I was thinking about earlier, but I kind of let slip my mind. It's the whole Terry situation with Maury about like how he's looking at a picture of Abby and he ended up turning off his pacemaker. I think it's because he wanted to make himself suffer a little bit. because because Abby was 100% like, hey, tell Mari the truth, and now like everything's kind of blown up, and it's like he didn't listen to her. It's like she's always been the guiding rock, she's been the shining light when it came to the Donovan family, and it's like now she's going, and now it's just like he doesn't have her to kind of talk to and rely on. Maybe if Abby was still around, maybe she could kind of like mend some of the fences, they've kind of been like broken now, but now she's gone, and now Terry's has no one to really rely on. He only has himself to kind of like, doesn't have her to kind of light the way for him, essentially. So overall, a very good episode. I'm very interested to see, especially like where this whole Natalie storyline takes us, like, present day too, like where all that's going to fall at, like, because there's still probably going to be even more fallout from her particular situation. I mean, so far she seems like the only person that he's like, he does his typical job for of fixing things. I mean, granted, there's the whole Sam situation, which they kind of referenced at the beginning of the episode, which I guess is kind of like, oh, that storyline's probably going to go full circle again. I mean, I think that's probably going to start centerlining and becoming the main focus. Once again, it's kind of interesting to me because it seems like she's mainly the present day storyline, where it seems like Natalie kind of bounces back and forth between, like, it's like this episode introduced the fact is that she played a role in the past as well as now, which apparently, to put it in timeline perspective, it's been about a couple months since Abby died. So I'm very interested to see what goes down in the next episode. Oh yeah, really quick look too. I almost let this slip my mind as well. It's a whole, a little more explanation on the whole Ray situation. When he ended up fighting, like, losing his temper, because it's like, that ended up happening it happened the night of Abby dying. Like, the day that Abby died, that whole altercation happened, and it's like, what, it's like, you act like it's such a, misunderstanding. It's like, what kind of misunderstanding would lead to you smashing up your own restaurant, which we never saw that element before. So that's new information, that he apparently destroyed the restaurant, plus hitting your brother multiple times, which to me, like I said, like from the little bit we saw, it looked like it was Mickey and Daryl who caught it, but it seems like maybe Terry was involved too, or maybe they were specifically referencing Daryl, which once again brings to the question, like, how are they okay with where they are now? I guess it's a situation where everyone was kind of like, okay, like, what led to that altercation? Because even like his probation officer, C. Thomas Howell's character, is like, oh, like, did he say something to upset you? Did he say something wrong? It's like, no, it's a misunderstanding. So I don't know. Maybe it's just something like, in a sense of like, it was something about him and his, less than reputable, acts of like being with other people other than Abby. Maybe it was kind of referencing that, and that pissed Ray off, because it's a situation of like him having to confront his own mistakes and he didn't want to. Maybe they ended up saying something that's true and he didn't like that and it set him off. I don't know. There's so many different levels. I kind of already talked about it last episode, and one of my thoughts on how it could be, but that's most likely not the case. But I'll still leave that open in my head to still, wonder whether or not that's the case. It was like a whole thing of like, oh, maybe the Donovans kind of got mixed up in something, and that something got Abby killed, that she didn't actually die from her illness, even though it was a combination. Like, maybe she was already sick, plus something else happened. But I'm thinking, I'm still thinking that's not the case, but always keeping an open mind for the different possibilities of where this could go. So, but I mean, really, that's really it this time. I just want to kind of add that in on the end, just since I completely forgot to talk about that as well. So, but till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.